Next up is a video email from Kevin.
Hey Pat and Veronica. Streaming high-def content wirelessly to my PS3 causes stuttering. Does Ethernet over the power lines get anywhere close to 100 megabits of regular Ethernet? And does it work across power circuits?
Okay, that's a good one actually. Ethernet versus 802.11g for HD content streaming to a PS3.
Yeah, you'd think so, given the current specs on powerline networking, which, in case the name doesn't make it obvious, uses adapters that plug into the power outlets in your home and use the existing power lines to actually send Ethernet over through the house. The packets are traveling through the power lines. It's very magical. You know, instead of wiring all your Ethernet cables like through holes in the wall and around the corners and nailing them down to the side of the things and the stuff.
Stapling them at kneecap height like a friend of mine did once in our house.
Wait, kneecap height? Why
would
you do that?
Because they were lazy.
Just run them on the floors by the whatever.
It would seem obvious, but
Anyway, the theoretical max of current powerline adapters is 200 megabits per second. That should stop 802.11g's 54 megabits per second, though, right? I mean, that's kind of how, the math makes sense.
Sure.
Especially since you only need a clean 20 megabits per second or so to stream HD over your home network.
And we should quantify, it's like 720p-ish, like, Apple TV or the other downloadable HD
So what about circuits, though? I mean, most houses have like 2 or 3 or 4 circuits running the power in their house. Is there going to be some kind of wall there?
Well, there's
theoretical, non-physical wall, or maybe a physical wall. I don't know.
Let us discuss the caveats. Powerline networking has gotten 8 zillion times better than when it started out. When it started out, it was a screaming mess, right? But you have to have your adapters have to be on the same circuit.
Okay, that's really important to know.
They suffer from interference issues, like big time.
Like what kind of interference? Like electrical
turning on your
interference,
plasma television, or having dimmer switches,
interesting.
surge protectors.
Surge protectors are important because it will not work with surge protectors unless they actually have a plug that is specifically for power line networking. So some of them do. They'll have I think it says home line right on the adapter there, and that one should be safe for using, but otherwise you do not want to plug it into a surge protector. That won't work. Yeah,
because basically, they do a lot of really sophisticated manipulation, frequency hopping to try to figure out the best possible connection inside your house. And before I forget, there are 2 competing technologies for homeline power, basically for power line networking that do not interact: HomePlug AV and DS2 UPA.
And don't you just love when they do that? 2 competing technologies that don't work together.
Makes me want to hurt
When has that ever
things.
worked?
It doesn't. It's frustrating. There's a chance Powerline will work okay in your home, but make sure the devices are returnable. If they don't, 802.11n is probably a better bet, and Ethernet is still the king. There's a really great read actually at smallnetbuilder.com, HD streaming Smackdown Draft 11n versus Powerline, where the author actually sat down and compared. The biggest thing was amazing. If you looked at the Powerline networking test to different parts of his house, it was amazing how radically different the throughput was.
So the interesting thing too is while there are 2 different kinds of powerline home networking, 2 different, I guess, what would you say? Competing standards. You can use adapters from different companies differently in your house. So say if you have like one in your living room and one in your office, they don't have to be the same brand to work together.
If they have the same spec.
As long as they have the same specs. You can switch them around and use different ones depending on the prices that you find online if you want to buy a new adapter. But you need to have a new one for each room.
This is definitely one of those areas where if you can find benchmarks on them, you should read them, because different chipsets are supposed to work better than others. It's just, Ethernet still rocks. 802.11n, I think, is your next step. 802.11g, yes, as you noticed, it doesn't work so well with big bandwidth.
Exactly.